Okay, ready. Because today, we're going to explore a story that's, well, frankly, pretty unsettling. We've got this personal account, originally shared on YouTube, detailing a really, really spooky experience someone had while traveling.
Yeah, it's quite something.
The setting for this is Jeju Island, South Korea. Now, for most of us, Jeju means, like, stunning landscapes, volcanic stuff, great coastlines. It's a huge tourist spot.
Definitely. Beautiful place.
But as the story shows, it can also be a place with this unsettling layer of mystery.
Right.
So our aim today is to walk you through this specific account, figure out exactly what the narrator went through, and also look at the context the source gives us. It might shed some light on, why this all happened.
And the source does jump right into that, bringing up this fascinating connection between the island's history and, well, its belief systems. It suggests there might be something deeper going on, related to the place itself.
Okay, so what's the background the source mentions?
Well, it's quite stark, actually. The source mentions a period in Jeju's history, protests against the government, that led to a terrible loss of life.
Oh.
Yeah, the estimate mentioned is huge, something like 25,000 to 30,000 people died. And importantly, local belief often regards many of these as innocent spirits.
Wow. 25 to 30,000, that's a heavy historical weight for an island.
It really is.
So maybe the first key thing to grasp from the source here is that Jeju isn't just postcard views. It carries this very real trauma of widespread death, potentially leaving behind these spirits seen as innocent victims.
Exactly. And the source connects this directly to the local beliefs. It specifically brings up Cheman shamanism, which is apparently quite prominent there.
Cheman shamanism.
Yeah, it involves strong beliefs in spirit possession, communication through shamans or mediums. And get this, the source says there are over 400 shrines on the island.
400. Okay, so that's insight number 2, right? There's this active, living cultural belief system all about spirits and the land, clearly visible with all those shrines. It's not just ancient history.
Precisely. And then the source makes the connection that brings us right to the story we're about to hear. It talks about the possibility that some modern buildings, hotels, resorts, places like that, might actually be built on sites where these historical deaths happened.
Ah, okay.
And this is presented as a potential reason why spirits might be tied to these specific modern locations. The source even draws a parallel to the Thai idea of Chati Chalthang.
Like guardian spirits or land spirits.
Exactly, that idea of spirits being intrinsically linked to a specific piece of land.
Right. So insight number 3 from the source. Even a brand new looking hotel could be significant if the land itself has this kind of history. The source is basically saying, you need this context to understand why someone might have the experience we're about to describe.
That's the framing, yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the story itself. It starts with the narrator, a woman traveling from Thailand to Jeju. She is on a package tour with colleagues from work, 7 of them in total.
A company trip, sounds like.
Seems that way. The source gives a few quick details. It was a 4-day, 2-night trip, cost 990 Thai baht. Included flights, hotel, sightseeing, pretty standard stuff.
Right, the usual package deal.
And the first day sounds completely normal. They did the tourist thing, visited the Jeju Village Museum, went to a temple, which apparently had this huge, very noticeable golden Buddha statue.
Okay.
The group followed the guide, did the local customs, buying candles, folding money for offerings, that kind of thing. Everything seemed fine, pleasant even.
Just a regular tour day.
Exactly. But things take a turn when they get to the hotel for that first night. The narrator realizes immediately this isn't the hotel that was listed on their itinerary.
Oh, the old hotel switch. That always feels a bit dodgy, doesn't it?
Totally. Especially on a group tour where you expect things to be set.
Yeah.
And the guide's explanation was, well, the original hotel was full. Too many tourists. Right. But they pitched this new place as actually being better, said it had bigger rooms. The narrator described it as like a newish looking white building, but it was a bit isolated, separate from the main town.
Okay.
And to kind of smooth it all over, the guide bought the group beer and fried chicken.
Ah, the peace offering.
Pretty much. So the room situation for the narrator and 2 colleagues, 3 of them sharing. The room had 2 large single beds.
Right.
She shared one bed with a colleague. The source later calls her Sister A. The other colleague, Sister B, slept alone in the other bed. And the narrator specifically noted there was a pretty big gap between these 2 beds.
Got it. 3 women, 2 beds, some space between them.
Yep. So after dinner, the chicken, the beer, everyone was just exhausted. ready to crash. You know that feeling.
Oh yeah, end of a long travel day.
She even mentioned being so tired she didn't feel like showering right away. Just wanted to sleep.
Relatable.
And that's exactly when the weird stuff started. She was in that kind of blurry state, drifting between being awake and asleep.
That hypnagogic state. Yeah, things can feel very real then.
Totally. And the first thing she heard was footsteps. Distinct. Heavy footsteps, not just creaks, but heavy.
Okay.
And then a knocking sound. She described it very specifically. Pock, pock, pock. It sounded like it was moving down the hallway outside the room, getting closer, almost like it was knocking on each door it passed.
Knocking on the doors.
Very creepy. And then the sound stopped, right outside their door. And immediately after, she said, this sudden, really strange silence fell in the room. She described it like her ears felt muffled, just unnatural quiet.
Ooh, that's unsettling. The absence of sound can be worse sometimes.
Right. Her first thought was, okay, maybe I'm dreaming, maybe I'm imagining it. She opened her eyes, looked around. Nothing seemed out of place. Her 2 colleagues looked like they were fast asleep.
Try to rationalize it. Normal reaction.
But then it didn't stop there. She heard the sound of water running. Clearly.
From where?
From the shower tap. Inside the room's bathroom.
Okay, that's definitely not hallway noise. That's in the room.
Yeah. Exactly. Big escalation. She was totally confused. Thought maybe, okay, one of her colleagues got up quietly to use the bathroom. But she looked again. Nope. Both still apparently sound asleep in their beds.
Right, so the running water, unexplained.
At this point, her heart just started hammering. The confusion switched pretty fast to real fear.
I bet.
And then came what she described as the absolute most chilling part. She heard a whisper, a male voice, whispering.
Where from?
From under her bed.
Oh no, under the bed. That's primal fear territory.
All right. And she couldn't understand the language. It was foreign to her. Just incomprehensible whispering from under the bed she was lying on.
Jeez.
And at the same time, she felt something physical, a distinct weight pressing down on her feet, like someone was physically squeezing her legs hard.
Wow. Okay, so auditory and tactile.
Yeah. Her body's reaction was immediate and terrifying. She felt like she was suffocating, couldn't breathe properly, and her whole body went ice cold.
Sleep paralysis type feelings.
Yeah.
Or something more.
Sounds very much like it, but maybe intensified. She desperately tried to scream, to move, wake up her friends, anything. But she was completely stuck. Couldn't make a sound, couldn't move a muscle. She said she was just crying, tears streaming down from sheer terror and feeling trapped.
That feeling of being helpless is horrifying.
In her mind, she started fighting back the only way she could think of trying to recite Buddhist chants. She mentioned Chinnabanchon, which is a really well-known protective chant in Thailand.
Right.
But in her panic, she couldn't remember it all. She just kept repeating the basic parts she knew, like itipiso and nemo, over and over in her head.
Trying anything.
But the male voice, the whispering from under the bed, it didn't stop. She said it felt like it was talking over her chanting, almost drowning it out, interrupting her prayers.
As if it was actively countering her efforts.
That was exactly her thought process. She realized, maybe this thing, whatever it is, doesn't understand Thai prayers. Maybe they have no effect here.
That's a chilling thought in itself. Your spiritual protection might not work.
So her absolute last resort, feeling completely helpless, was to mentally call out to that big golden Buddha statue they'd seen earlier that day at the temple, just pleading for help in her mind.
Reaching out to that image of sanctity.
And she said the instant she did that, she could suddenly move again, could make sound. Her whole body was shaking like crazy, and she just let out this huge scream.
Relief and terror all at once.
Yeah. But here's the really baffling part she mentioned. Her colleagues, still sound asleep, slept right through her scream, didn't stir, didn't hear a thing, apparently.
They didn't hear the scream. That's very strange.
Incredibly strange. So the next morning, you can imagine she looked awful.
For sure.
Her colleagues noticed right away, asked if she slept badly or maybe just hung over from the beer and chicken. She just mumbled something about a hangover, wasn't ready to talk about it.
Understandable. How do you even begin to explain that?
Right. But she knew she couldn't stay there again.
Yeah.
She went straight to the guide and basically begged them to change hotels for the second night.
Did it work?
No. The guide just refused. So the same thing, everywhere else was full, high season. They had to stay another night in that same hotel.
Oh, that's awful. Trapped.
Exactly. She described feeling incredibly scared and just totally alone. Because nobody else in her group seemed to have experienced anything remotely similar, or at least they weren't saying anything. You could just see the stress on her.
Yeah, that isolation must have been terrible.
Later that day, though, things shifted a bit. Sister A, the colleague she shared the bed with, saw how upset she still looked and asked her privately if she was really okay.
Good. Someone noticed.
Yeah. And then came this really pivotal moment. The other colleague, Sister B, the one who slept in the separate bed,
Yes.
Sister B just casually commented to the narrator something like, "Wow, you were walking really loudly to the bathroom last night. You were gone for ages before I fell back asleep."
Wait, what? But the narrator said she was paralyzed.
Exactly. The narrator was absolutely stunned, floored, because she knew 100% she had not gotten out of bed, she hadn't moved, she hadn't gone to the bathroom.
Okay, hold on. This is significant.
Totally. Hearing that from Sister B just cemented it for her. It meant something supernatural definitely happened, and Sister B had apparently heard or perceived something moving around, even if it wasn't the narrator herself.
Right, so as the source points out, Sister B's comment acts as this kind of external validation. The narrator is experiencing paralysis, can't move, feels pinned down, yet someone else in the room perceives her as being up and walking around. It strongly suggests something was active in that room and perceived by someone else, aligning with the narrator's own terrifying internal experience.
It's a huge piece of the puzzle. After this bombshell from Sister B, Sister A tried to comfort the narrator. She actually took off this silver ring she was wearing. It had a blue stone and gave it to her.
A protective charm.
That's what she said. Sister A claimed it would ward off evil spirits, help her sleep better for the second night back in that room.
Worth a shot at that point, I guess.
Definitely. So they got through the second day of touring. The narrator mentioned being so exhausted from the whole ordeal the night before, plus the day's activities, that she actually slept really deeply whenever they were traveling between sites.
Just wiped out.
Completely. But then came the evening, and they had to go back to the same hotel, the same room. It was daunting. She hesitated about which bed to use.
I don't blame her.
But in the end, she decided to stick with the same bed as the first night, but this time she wore the silver ring Sister A gave her.
Hoping it would make a difference.
And apparently it did, or something did. Because that second night, her experience was totally different. She slept soundly, deeply, didn't wake up, didn't experience anything scary.
Wow, okay.
She figured it was probably just sheer exhaustion catching up with her, but maybe she hoped the ring helped too.
Could be either or both.
So the next morning she woke up feeling actually good, relieved. She immediately thanked Sister A for the ring, told her she'd finally slept well.
A moment of relief.
It seemed like it, but then came the final, double underlined chilling confirmation. Sister B came out of the bathroom.
Yeah.
And she looked pale. Really pale. And she asked the narrator, "Didn't she sleep well again last night?"
Oh no, why?
Sister B explained why she was asking. She said she'd seen the narrator sitting up right at the end of her bed during the night.
Sitting at the end of the bed.
Yeah. And Sister B said she even called out to her, but the figure just sat there, didn't respond at all.
But the narrator was asleep.
According to both the narrator and Sister A, yes. They were both completely shocked hearing this. Sister A immediately confirmed, no, she slept like a log all night, didn't move.
So Sister B saw something else. Again.
That was the realization they all had right there in that moment. The
Yeah.
shared, sudden, terrifying understanding. They concluded that the figure Sister B saw sitting silently at the end of the bed. It was likely the same entity, the same thing that caused the footsteps, the whispering, the feeling of being held down the first night.
Wow. Just their reaction says it all. The source says they just grabbed their bags, packed up super fast, and got downstairs and out of that room as quickly as they possibly could.
I would too. Absolutely.
This whole account really brings us back to that initial context the source provided about Jeju's history and its beliefs.
Right, the potential connection to the land.
Exactly. Reconsidering that idea that the hotel might be on ground with a tragic history, it suddenly feels very relevant, doesn't it? And the entity's behavior under the bed, the whispers being incomprehensible, the physical oppression being seen by someone else when the narrator was asleep. It aligns with these kind of unknown, maybe malevolent encounters you sometimes hear about in places believed to hold, spiritual residue.
Yeah, it fits that pattern.
And the narrator, in the original video source, she ends by posing some really fascinating questions. Questions that probably occurred to her after processing all this, especially thinking about it happening in a foreign country.
Like what?
She asks things like, if you encounter something like this, a ghost, a spirit, whatever you want to call it, in a foreign place, do your own prayers or chants in your own language actually work? Or should you try something else? Like, should you try using English, assuming it's a more universal language, or even attempt the local language's prayers or ways of dealing with spirits? It really digs into how these cultural beliefs about the supernatural might interact or not interact across borders.
That's a deep question.
She also brought up the Thai concept of making merit, doing good deeds for spirits. Does that concept even translate? Would it have any effect on a spirit from a completely different cultural background, like potentially in Jeju?
Those are really unsettling questions to be left with, aren't they? It forces you, the listener, to really think, okay, if that were me in that situation, terrified in a hotel room far from home, what would I do? What beliefs would I fall back on?
Right. Do our spiritual protections only work within our own cultural bubble? Or is something more universal when it comes to this unknown territory?
It's been quite a chilling journey through this story from Jeju Island, hasn't it? It really weaves together that intense personal fear with the bigger picture of a place's history and its belief systems. It definitely sticks with you.
It really does. And it leaves you pondering something quite profound, I think. When we travel, especially to places like Jeju with such deep, sometimes dark histories, how much of what we experience, particularly feelings of fear or unease, is shaped by us, by our own culture, our beliefs, maybe even our expectations, versus how much might be genuinely tied to the place itself, to its history, its energy, the beliefs held by the people there for generations, something inherent to the location no matter where we come from.
A really provocative thought to end on. Thank you for exploring this unsettling account with us today.